guys, so today's video is going to be a review and swatching on the Urban Decay Naked Honey palette. Now, forgive my appearance, but I did go to temple services this morning and I kept my makeup on just to film this video, and then I'm probably just going to take it off. I'm supposed to go to my boyfriend's house, but I don't know what time I'm going, so and I didn't really want to keep my makeup on anymore after that. So anyway, I really wanted to film a review on this guy. I know it's been getting a lot of talk and a lot of hype, so I really just wanted to share my thoughts on this palette. Also, last year, I never got around to filming a review for the Naked Cherry palettes, but with Urban Decay Naked palettes, I feel like it's just very nostalgic to pick up these palettes, and I feel like they kind of get you that way because I was not going to get this palette originally. So let's dive into it, and then I will share with you guys the nostalgia and the comparisons between the other palettes. So let's get into the palette. So this is what the outer packaging looks like, and it's really cute. It has like the honey theme. It kind of like has this like honey background, like it's being blended in like the huge pot that they make honey in. And then on the back, it tells you all of the shade names. They do that for every Naked palette, where on the back they show that all the colors are here, and it always comes with a dual-ended brush, and they've been doing that every time they come out with a palette. So yeah, let's share with you guys. This is actually the first time they didn't put like the shades on the front of it like they did with the Cherry and the Naked Heat, as you guys can see. With the outer packaging with those, they have the eyeshadows on the front. Sorry, hold on. Okay, sorry, my best friend started messaging me. Apparently she's on the island today and she didn't tell me until like 2 hours ago, and that's when I was like still at services. So I'm like kind of annoyed, like I don't know if I'm going to see her or if I'm going to see my boyfriend. So, but honestly, I'm like way too tired to like go out with her. So I offered if she wants to stop by before I go to his house. I'm like, okay, cool. So whatever. So anyway, this is what the outer packaging looks like. Now let's dive into the palette. Like I said, there's the outer packaging shows all of the shades on the back, and it shows the brush. And it says, it claims that the Naked Honey eyeshadow palette is raw and sticky sweet, just the way nature intended. This hive of 12 exclusive golden neutrals includes classic golds, warm ambers, and rich chocolate browns. Reach for our go-to shade amber. It practically glows. Create the perfect hazy smoked out eye with sting, warm brown matte, or get hooked on honey, intense gold metallic for the ultimate 70s statement eye. Our buzzed about palette is a keeper with everything you need to create a swarm of looks from bright and sunny to dangerous after dark. So let's show you guys what it looks like. So let me open it up for you guys. So on the inner packaging, it has like a little honeycomb design. I think that's so freaking cute. I really like that. I did pick up mine at Ulta. I did use my $10 birthday coupon, and I also opened up an Ulta credit card so I could get the 20% off, and I also used my points of $3, so I only ended up paying $30 for my palette. The original price of this is $49. Obviously, you can find it at Sephora, Ulta, and UrbanDecay.com. So this is what the outer packaging looks like. I mean the inner packaging. And it has this really cute like golden package. I actually really like the packaging. Some people don't like it, but I think it's really cute. It's really sturdy, really nice plastic. I'm like, I really like it. So it has like that swirl design again, and it says Naked Urban Decay Honey Palette. And then on the back, it just shows like where it was made and where it was licensed and everything, usually how every single Naked palette comes. So let's open this up for you guys. So when you open up the palette, it comes with the standard mirror that the Naked palettes come with. And then there is the dual-ended brush, which is, this is actually a really nice brush. It's a really good like crease brush. It's very soft. So one end is kind of more for like crease work, and then the other side is kind of more for like lid shades, which I probably should use this to pack on lid shades. I need to do that. And it says Naked Honey on the middle right here, and it's like a clear see-through packaging. It kind of reminds me of like the amber that they had in like Jurassic Park with like the mosquito like caught inside. Remember like the mosquito was on the like inside of like the staff that the old guy used to use in the movie. That kind of reminds me of it, like honeybee, amber kind of thing. I don't know. Am I getting it? Am I getting through to anyone here? So anyway, let's show you guys what the palette looks like. So here's what the palette looks like on the inside. So let me show you guys a up close look. So we have 7 mattes and 5 shimmers in this palette. So let's run through the names really quickly. So we have Flyby, Sweet, Swarm, Amber, Keeper, Golden, Honey, Queen, Hive, Drip, HBIC, and Sting. Now, further and further down the road as Urban Decay has released multiple naked palettes at this point, they keep on releasing more and more naked palettes with more mattes in them. When the first naked palette came out, the second one came out, there really was only like 2 or 3 mattes in them, but now they really keep a more cohesive theme and a little bit more versatility with the palettes, with having a variety of neutrals in the palettes and these intense metallic shimmers. So we're going to run through the palette and do some swatching. So I'm going to start with the shade Flyby on this side. So I'm just going to be using my finger. So Flyby is basically the perfect brow bone highlight. It's this really pretty white ivory shade, but it's not matte, you guys. It has like this crazy intense shift to it. So that's what the first shade Flyby looks like. And it's not just completely flat and matte. It has a bit of a shine to it. So it's kind of like a matte with like a little bit of metallic in it. I don't really know how to explain it. It's not a shimmer. It just has a certain bit of reflectiveness to it. Like when you put this on the brow bone, it's pretty intense. So I actually wanted to use this to set my eyes when I first used the palette. But, let me, just give me 1 second, sorry. Okay, so, but when I used it, it wasn't matte, so I quickly went over it with just the face powder that I was going to use that day. So that's what I usually do. I don't normally use an eyeshadow unless I'm like way too lazy to grab my face powder when I'm doing my eyeshadow, or if I'm in a rush getting ready for work and I don't have time to grab the eyeshadow, my face powder, until I'm like starting to do my face makeup. So anyway, now let's go into the second shade, and the second shade is called Sweet. And this one is kind of the only one that I wouldn't say is not very honey toned, but I think it works as a great like transition shade. It's just a very light brown shade. And it does work as a crease shade as well, but it's a pretty light brown shade. It's right there. You can barely see it, honestly. And it works as like a really nice transition shade for the crease. So that one is Sweet. So that is the second shade. Then the next shade after that, we have the shade Swarm. Now, all 3 of the first shades are all mattes, and then we're going to get into some shimmers. So I'm just going to swatch them in order. So the next shade is called Swarm, and this is probably my favorite crease shade in the palette. I use this basically every single time in my crease when I use this palette. It's a really, really pretty honey tone matte light brown shade, and it's just super soft. It blends out super easily, and I really love how rich the pigment shows when you actually blend it into your crease. It's a really, really nice shade. So it's kind of like a yellow toned light brown, and it's so pretty. Okay, now let's get into some shimmers, which of course are always my favorite part. So the first shimmer we have is called Amber, and honestly you barely have to swatch these, you guys. These are really buttery and very pigmented. So the first shade is called Amber, and basically it's an amber shimmer shade. That's the color it is. It's the color Amber. And it's a basic amber shade, and it's beautiful. All of these metallics are probably some of the best metallics I've ever used from Urban Decay in a naked palette because they are so metallic and glittery. They just show up so easily on your lid and they're just so beautiful. So the first shimmer shade we have is called Amber. So that is the first one. Okay, and then the next shade is another matte, and the next shade is called Keeper. And this one is a step down darker than the Swarm shade. It's kind of like a mid-toned mustardy brown. This one is also beautiful. And that one is Keeper right there. It has like a beautiful like goldeny tone to it. I mean, all of these are beautiful gold tones. So that one is Keeper. Again, a beautiful crease shade. I love that in the crease as well. Okay, then we have 3 more metallics now coming up. So the next metallic we have is called Golden, and basically it's self-explanatory. It's a beautiful metallic gold shade, like a honey-toned metallic gold. I wouldn't say it was a yellow gold, which I do appreciate. It's not that yellow. And that one is the shade Golden. Look how that reflects. Isn't that freaking stunning? It's so beautiful, you guys. I love using that all over the lid. It's so pretty, and I love using it as an inner corner highlight as well. So that one is Golden, so pretty. Then the next one we have is called Honey. Okay, I'm just hoping I don't get hard pan with this because Marley told me that she was having trouble with this shade. But mine seems to be swatching okay. So this one is called Honey. And this one I think is pretty much the star of the show of this palette because it's not really a green, but it's not really a yellow. It's kind of like a light green yellow gold. It is so pretty. And this one is definitely like the most metallic in the palette. So this one is called Honey. And this one doesn't really swatch that great. You kind of just have to put it all over your eyes in order to get a good swatch. But look at that. It does reflect really beautifully in the camera. And that one is the shade Honey right there. It is a really pretty yellow gold kind of shade, and it just reflects so many multi glitters. It's so glittery. I love it. So pretty on the lid. And then the next metallic we have is called Queen. And again, this one's very pigmented. And this one is like a dark bronzy shade. Very smoky shade. And I really love this one too. This one again has a ton of glitters reflecting in it. And that's what that one looks like right here. That one is Queen. Again, reflects beautifully in the light. It's really beautiful. It's a dark shimmery shade, and I just love that they included that shade in the palette. Okay, 4 more shades, you guys. So the next shade we have is a matte, another matte, and we have the shade Hive. And this one is a just standard run-of-the-mill medium-toned brown shade. It's not as goldeny toned as the first 2 that we swatched, like Keeper and Swarm. And this one is Hive right here. So again, a really beautiful deepening shade in the crease. You can even use it on the outer corners. And then the next shade we have is another matte, and this one is called Drip. And this one's a little bit more of a step down, darker. It's a little bit more of like a chocolatey brown. I would say a warm tone medium brown, actually. I actually thought when I swatched Hive and Drip that they looked super similar to each other. But now when I actually swatched them next to each other now, Drip is slightly darker. So they are 2 different shades. They're not like exactly the same. Like that would kind of suck if they were almost exactly the same, but they're not. So that one is Drip right there. Again, that one is Hive and that one is Drip. And again, really beautiful. Like basically just a tad step down from Hive, and it's a little bit darker of a darker brown. Okay, then the second to last shade is the last metallic in the palette. And this one is called HBIC. I really don't know what that means. Can someone tell me what it actually means? Because I have no idea. So this one is HBIC, and it's a really beautiful, like, bronzy, shimmery shade. And this one is also stunning. And that one is HBIC. So let me just give you a better swatching. So that's what that one looks like right there. So that one is also really beautiful, reflecting in the light. Really pretty. I love that one as well. And then the last one, and the last matte in the palette, and they always put like the darkest color at the end, is called Sting. And this one is just your standard run-of-the-mill dark brown that I absolutely love in any palette, because you guys know that's usually my outer corner shade of choice. I love putting a dark brown in the outer corners, and that's basically the shade I use in the outer corners every time I use this palette. So this one is Sting right here. Again, a really beautiful dark matte brown. I would say this one would be a chocolatey brown. So let me run through the shades for you guys really quick. So let's just show you what they look like. Okay, so then the first shade is Flyby. Then we have Sweet, Swarm, Amber, Keeper, Golden, Honey, Queen, Hive, Drip, HBIC, and Sting. So those are all of the shades. I mean, as you guys can see, the pigmentation in this palette is really beautiful. So I was really hoping to not convince myself to get this palette, but then after I swatched it in store and after I did the calculations of how much that I was going to save with using my birthday coupon and using the Ulta credit card, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just get it. I kept on thinking about that I wanted it. I kept on hearing so many great reviews about the palette, and I was like, you know what? This looks like a palette I really would use. When I first saw it on Instagram, it really is so weird when you see something on Instagram and then you actually see it being used on YouTube. When you actually see it in the video, that's when you're like, oh, that's actually really beautiful. Like, sometimes you really can't go on images on Instagram. It's so weird. Like, you really have to see it being used. I think after I saw the Fancy Faces video and then I saw my girl XO Marley's video on it, I was like, I kind of convinced myself to get it. So let's run through what's on my eyes super quick today. I have tested out all of the shades, and I have to say I absolutely adore this palette. But I would have to say that with the Naked palettes, you're going to get pretty standard one note type of looks because they try to make it as simple as possible to create a look, because that's why people love Naked palettes, because they're basic as hell and they just create a color scheme that works for everybody. So these kind of tones are super trendy in the makeup industry right now, and even though some people are like, you know, the Naked palettes are tired because Urban Decay is not coming out with great formulas and there are better formulas out there, I think they keep on stepping up the quality time and time again with these palettes. And why not have a certain kind of nostalgia? And they know what is trendy and what works because they release palettes that they know that people are still going to use every day. Like, if you tell me that if they're going to release like a Naked palette that's like blue themed, do you really think you're going to use that as much as like this type of palette? Probably not. So anyway, let's just go through what I'm wearing on my eyes. So in my crease, I have Swarm as my transition. No. Yes, Swarm. Then I darkened up the crease more with Keeper as my crease shade. Then I defined the crease with the shades Hive and Drip, which I usually just mix those two together to define my crease. And then for my outer corner shade, like I said, I always use the shade Sting, so that's what I used. And then for my lid shade, I went in with the Stunning Gold, and that one is called Golden. I mean, it's just a run-of-the-mill gold. And then for my brow bone, I just used Flyby. And then for my lower lash line, I just used the shade Swarm, I believe. I don't think I used Keeper. I just wanted to keep it really light underneath the lower lash line because I was going to Temple this morning, so I didn't want to do anything too crazy. And then I just grabbed one of my ColourPop Single Shadows, my favorite Let Me Explain, for the inner corners, because I feel like when I use Golden on my lid, I need something a little bit lighter on my inner corners, because not many of the other shades are really an inner corner highlight. Maybe I could have used Flyby, but You know what? Let's see how that would work. And it doesn't really have enough shimmer in it for me, but let's match up the inner corners. I was trying to use HBIC. Yeah, that's like too matte for me on the inner corners, but whatever, it's fine. I'm going to take it off now anyway. So I tried to use HBIC on the inner corners this morning, and I was just like, no. But I've tested out all of the palettes, all of the shades, and I have to say, this is probably one of the best quality palettes that I've used from Urban Decay. The hype is real. The quality of the palette is so nice. And these mattes are super, super buttery, so easy to blend, so easy to apply. I just find that this is a really easy palette to work with, and I feel like it's going to be a great everyday palette for somebody that kind of wants just to amp up their look a little bit, because I feel like it's a neutral palette, but it's kind of like an amped up version of a neutral palette, but then you can use like Honey or Queen or Golden all over the lid for like a night look. Like, these shades work for a work day into the night if you go out for dinner or something. Like, if you pop on any of these shades or create a look with this palette, they pretty much transition from day to night pretty damn easily. Like, I could go out like this right now and put like a liquid lipstick on and I'd be good to go, you know? So, like I said, I pretty much love this palette. So, let me know what you guys think about this palette, and let me know if you're interested in picking it up. I'm going to do a couple of comparisons between some of the Naked palettes, and then I'm going to grab two other palettes that I forgot to grab before, and I'm just going to compare those as well. But I just wanted to compare the Naked Heat and the Naked Cherry. I know they're not the same colors, but I wanted to just show you guys how they keep on adding more mattes to the palettes. So the Naked Heat, you guys know, is pretty much my favorite Naked palette. Like, this palette is just perfection to me. I find that, you know, the matte shades just work with every lid shade, and I feel like there's kind of more variety in this palette. But let's compare both of them side by side super quick. So as you guys can see, for this one, it has a little bit more glittery shades, not as red tone, because obviously this is a warm palette and this is like a warm honey palette. So I would say these ones are probably the most similar. In this one, you have one, two, three, four, five. You have 7 mattes. So they stuck with the 7 mattes, 5 shimmers theme. The ounce shade, I wouldn't even say is really a shimmer. But even though there's only 4 shimmer shades in here, I always feel like I have enough options in here to create a different look every time I use it. So you guys know how much I love this. It's my favorite. I love it so much. I do think that the formula is better in the Heat palette than the Cherry palette. But I also ended up really loving this palette as well. Again, I'm really sorry that I never got around to doing a review on it. The packaging on this palette is actually my favorite. Even though it's not exactly cherry. Like, the cherry, this is a cherry color. Honestly, cherries are basically this color. It's just the fact that this didn't have a red shade in here that everybody was, like, upset. Oh, dang. I did not realize I kind of did that to that shade. Kind of some of the pigments coming out. Okay. So this is the Cherry palette. As you guys know, you've seen me use this a bunch of times. In this one, they have less mattes, but again, they have enough mattes in here to create enough different looks. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 7 mattes and 5 shimmers. Never mind. They literally kept the same amount of shimmers in here as they did for this one. But for this one, I feel like there's a little bit more versatility in this palette, because you can go with these shades and create a really neutral look. You can go with this and create like a peachy look. You can go with like this one and create a neutral look. And then you can use any of these and create a pink look, and then this one and do like a pinkier look or like a more neutral look. Like, I feel like you can do so much with this palette that, again, I feel like you're a little bit limited with the shades that, or the looks that you can come up with this, just because it's very, very, you know, one note. But the formula is still amazing, and I think that's what really shines in the palette. So if you're a Naked collector, if you're an Urban Decay Naked collector, or if you're a completionist, I would say that the Honey palette is definitely 100% an amazing addition to your collection. I have all of the Naked palettes except for the Smoky palette and the Reloaded. The Reloaded palette was the first time I was actually not interested at all in picking up a Urban Decay palette. I originally wasn't going to get this palette when it came out, but then I just thought it looked so pretty, and actually Chip got this for me. So thank you so much, girl. I love it. I use it a ton. And the Naked Heat I got the year before because I knew I was going to get this palette. When it came out, this was like the most excited I was for an Urban Decay Naked palette because the first three were like, you know, very neutral, very basic. And then this one was like, you guys know that warm tone palettes are my jam. So I was like, I could not wait for this palette to come out. And I've used this palette a shit ton. I love it so much. So let me just grab the other two palettes I was going to compare it to super quick. Sorry, guys. Give me a sec. Okay. So the two palettes that I wanted to compare the Naked Honey palette to is, of course, everyone's doing a comparison on this palette, but I do think that this palette is different enough that if you have both, I don't think that they're similar enough for you to justify owning both of them. Like if you want one that's more yellow tone, or if you want one more that's honey tone, the yellow tone one would be the Honey palette from ColourPop, and this one would be the more honey tone one. So this is the ColourPop Honey palette, and as you guys can see, this one is their yellow palette because they come out with these monochromatic 9-pan palettes all the time. So I wanted to just compare a couple of the shades for you guys, but I just also wanted to hold them up side by side and show you guys that these palettes are different enough that if you were thinking about getting these, I do think that they're different enough that you could justify getting this. And also, this is a hell of a lot cheaper than this palette. If you don't want to pay the price for this palette, you can get this palette and pretty much come up with pretty similar looks. So as you guys can see, the palettes are pretty damn different. Like, there are a couple of similarities, but they're not, like, spot on. So let's just do a few swatch comparisons. So I'm just going to do Dandy from the ColourPop palette and then Golden from the Honey palette, and then I'm also going to do the shade Honey next to that. Yeah, I am getting a little bit of hard pan in that shade. But again, it looks fine on camera. So this one is Dandy from the ColourPop palette, this one is Golden, and this one is Honey from the Urban Decay palette. As you can see, all of them are pretty different, that they're not exactly the same. And the other shade I wanted to do, I mean, honestly, these are all pretty different that I don't really think there's enough similarities in this palette to really swatch enough of them. I'm going to swatch more of the mattes. So I'm going to swatch Stinger, and I'm going to swatch Swarm. Yeah, these are really different. So that one is Stinger, and that one is Swarm. That Stinger's from the Honey palette, and Swarm is from the Naked Honey palette. I can never type anything to save my life because I always have freaking eyeshadow on my fingers. So, and then the other shade I'm going to swatch is Sweet. Like, seriously, they swatch like butter. Like, you barely have to dip into them. So those are those three. So that one is Sweet, that one is Stinger, and that one is Swarm. Again, I think they're totally different enough that they really aren't like... They're really not enough similar shades. I'm just going to swatch Queen Bee as well next to these shades, the metallics. So that one's Queen Bee from the ColourPop palette. And then we have Amber, and then we have Honey, and then we have Dandy from the Honey palette. So As you guys can see, they are similar, but like I said, you can pretty much achieve the same look. You just don't have a brow bone highlight or like a dark outer corner shade in the Honey palette, which I'm sure you have a standard brow bone highlight that you use all the time, along with a standard dark outer corner shade if you smoke out or like to smoke out look. So it's not the end of the universe. So yeah, I just wanted to show you some comparisons again. There's really not enough comparisons in here for me. I know that they're both called Honey palettes, but they're definitely not similar palettes for you to justify owning both of them. I think that they both make great additions to your collection. So then the last comparison I wanted to do, and then I have to go. I'm like so tired right now. I wanted to compare the Honey palette with the Natasha Denona Gold palette. I actually think there's more similarities in this palette than there are with the Honey palette. So let me just show you guys side by side. I know that this palette is an arm and a leg compared to the Honey palette. So I would say that this is definitely the most expensive option. I would definitely go with this if you want to pay more of like a mid-toned range of price. A mid-range price is what I meant to say. I said mid-tone range. I don't even know what I'm saying. So these are the two palettes side by side. Obviously, without the blues in the Natasha Denona Gold palette, it's pretty much a run-of-the-mill gold palette, just like the Honey palette. I really wish she would have just replaced those two with blue palette, with golds, because I would have loved just a whole palette of golds. Because you guys know, like, golds are pretty much my favorite shades to put on my eyes. Sorry, give me a sec. Okay, so now let's compare some of the shades with the Natasha Denona palette. Where did I swatch the... I think most of these are... Well, I just wiped off the mattes from the ColourPop palette and the Urban Decay palette. I kept the... hold on. Sorry, my best friend's driving me nuts. Okay, so let's compare some of the shimmer shades. So I'm going to do the shade Varus from the Natasha Denona. And I'm going to swatch the shade Queen from the Honey palette. Now these shades are kind of similar. The way that the Natasha Denona swatch are just insanely pigmented. So that one is the Varus shade and that one is the Queen shade. Again, different enough. The Queen shade is a little bit lighter. The Varus shade is a little bit deeper and bronzier. Then let's do the shade Amber and the shade Aurum from the Natasha Denona. Again, super buttery. And let's swatch that one. The Aurum shade is kind of like a topper. So again, those are definitely different enough. The Amber shade, again, is more amber, and the Aurum shade is a little bit more of like a lighter, bronzier shade. So there's that. Okay, now let's do the golds just for comparison. So this is my favorite shade in the Natasha Denona, which is Oro. It's like literally one of the most blinding golds you can put on your lid. It's so beautiful. So that one is the shade Oro, and that one is Golden from the Naked palette. So they do look pretty similar on camera, but in person, they are pretty similar. But the shade Oro from the Natasha Denona is much more of a yellow gold, when the Golden shade is more of like a light yellow gold. Now let's do some of the mattes. I would say those are the only like shimmery shades that are super similar. So let's do the dark brown, which is Log in the Natasha Denona, and Sting, which is the chocolatey brown in the, oh my god, wow. So that one is the shade Log from Natasha Denona, and that one is Sting from the Urban Decay. And Sting is a lot more of a warmer tone brown, and Log is more of like a cooler tone brown, so those are definitely different. Actually, let's swatch this shade Alchemist from the Natasha Denona, and then the shade HBIC from the Urban Decay palette. Those do look pretty similar. Oh my god, I'm like filling up with swatches again. Okay, so this one, I actually forgot which one's which. I'm pretty sure the first one is Natasha Denona, and that one is the Urban Decay, right? Maybe it's... Yeah, this one's the Urban Decay, and this one is the Natasha Denona. Those are pretty similar, actually. HBIC is a little bit of a darker toned, shimmery, like, bronzy shade, and then the Alchemist shade is a little bit lighter. So they are pretty similar, though. I didn't realize how similar those ones were. And then let's do... A lot of the mattes are pretty damn similar, so let me clean off my hand, and those will be the last ones that I compare, and then I can go take a shower because I need to take my makeup off. It's like driving me nuts. So anyway, so the first shade we have is the shade Sandstone from the Natasha Denona, and then I'm going to compare it with Swarm from the Urban Decay. Swarm is much lighter than the Sandstone shade. So that one is Sandstone and that one is Swarm. Okay. Then we have the shade Aria from the Natasha Denona, which is pretty similar to... Well, those two are very similar. They're both from the same palette, though, so that's fine. And I'm going to swatch Keeper. Again, they're super different. So that one is Aria and that one is Keeper, but I'm also going to swatch Hive, which Hive is closer to that shade Aria from the Natasha Denona. But now I'm going to swatch the shade Teak, right? Again, Teak from the Natasha Denona. And this one is darker, and I would say, let me swatch Drip. I think those two were the most similar out of these shades. So that one is Teak, and that one is Drip. So Drip is a little bit more of a lighter brown. So those are just some comparison swatches for you guys. I thought that would be fun to add, because I don't really do that in my eyeshadow palette reviews sometimes. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. Please like and subscribe. Follow me on all my social media. Let me guys know if you are picking up this palette, what your thoughts are on it. I would love to know. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this and found it helpful. So like I said, please like and subscribe. Follow me on all my social media. I love you guys. Bye.